Oh, hi. I didn't see you come in. Welcome to Space Couch. Call the spaceships to Davenport, prepare for divanarchy, and interface with a couch in space. We took a week off, but we are back now. Um, we'll be doing our traditional winter break uh, in a bit, but not right now because it's Space Couch time. Super happy to see you all through the magic of the space internet. It's different than your terrestrial internet. Like I get better reception out here because we bounce it off of the rings of Saturn and other rings, but those are sort of the main ones, at least the ones I'm contractually obligated to say because they help sponsor this show a little bit. But we'll get to that in a second. Thank you so much for joining us on Space Couch. So much to get through today. But in addition to the rings of Saturn, I want to talk about our other sponsor, which will be Tiger Squawk Records. You want to check out the brand new Kionic single featuring Isserly. Batavia has a new release out, Step 13. It's amazing. Sugar Plum Suicide updated an older track for 2020 called Rabbit Hole. Gasoline Invertebrate I put out a new EP. It's super dope. Volt 9000 is back with Viral, and you want to check out Club Ovator's Impostor Bowl. Also, from Club Innovator, Mr. Zoth, two releases for gaming, and we put out a giant compilation called Tiger Squawk Records Squawksgiving 2020. 29 tracks. Everybody's on it. It's really great. Pay what you want for that giant beast of a compilation at tigersquawkrecords.bandcamp.com. What is up to Dre in the chat room today? Um, you get first dibs. So, uh, our guest today is someone I've known a while, and but is so multifaceted. There's always something to discover. I'm really excited for today's space sketch. I broke into alien speak. We were hanging out on Saturn to get that sweet deal where we bounce the signal off the ring. So I break into Saturnese sometimes, but I am very happy. Happy is to happen again. Very happy to have with us on the show the following guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ian Stair. What's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Oh, space stuff. You know how it is. Um, Goodness gracious, you have been uh, pretty active. We're just gonna get a little space coffee. Oh wait, I already started the Superman Cup. You've been pretty uh, doing it, man. Let's just start right off with uh, telemetry came out this year from STAER, if I'm
Right.
saying that right. That's you with
Yep.
the delta, and then Ian Stair is another entity released iterated processes in June of this year, so pretty recent. Tell us about these two albums and uh, where they might sit, sort of in your pantheon, or like if you want to place them emotionally or technically, even in sort of the array of your releases.
Okay, sure. So telemetry was this sort of like culmination of taking what had been up until that point pretty much a studio project and trying to sort of reinvent it to be able to be performed live. I was making ambient music, space music, whatever you'd like to call it, and
Oh, space
it,
music.
huh?
Space music is what we call it, because
Oh, for sure, it's awesome.
Sorry.
So trying to take that from something that was, done in the confines of this laboratory behind me and try to kind of break it out and get it in front of an audience and make it a little bit more engaging, so that way I could do it on a stage in real time,
Mm,
with, uh, all of the stress and potential for failure that,
right.
potentially entails. Um, and so I put together I kind of went back into the catalog and I found a few tunes that I said, all right, I could, work this into a set. And then I sort of started to compose around that
Mm.
to try and create something that over the course of an hour long performance would sort of form like a narrative arc,
Oh, wow,
something
okay.
that I could pull off with, I mean, even still, my live rig is, it's a lot of gear.
Yeah.
I've got, let's see, one, two, three, four, five keyboards plus the modular plus a pedal board. But it's all live. You know what I mean? There's no laptop, there's no Pro Tools, there's
That is
no
wild.
tracks or anything like that. It's all happening live. So there's like this tremendous potential for disaster. But
Astronomical, pardon the pun.
yeah, no, for real. It's definitely it was pretty intimidating. But I had been in 2019. I'd gotten a couple of really nice, fairly high profile invitations to perform at a couple of concert series, as well as a few on-air performances on FM radio. Uh, the most significant of which was I was asked to play by a show called Stars and Radio, which is the longest running ambient music program on FM radio in the United
Wow.
States. And they've been on the air for something like 41 years, and they broadcast out of WXPN in Philadelphia. And the live studio there is like, it's like a world class
Damn.
facility. They've got this brand new SSL console, huge live room, just
Mhm.
absolutely like a plus place to to
Right.
do a live performance. So I said to myself, all right, so if I do this right, and I don't, can I say fuck?
Just fuck shit ass balls. Yeah, go
Okay,
nuts.
cool. If I don't fuck this up, right,
Yeah.
I can take a recording from the board here and I can
Oh,
potentially
okay.
present that as a live recording. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And kind of make a living document of what this performance was all about. So thankfully, I didn't fuck it up.
Nice,
you know,
nice.
and so what telemetry is it's basically some of that performance as well as some of the performance I did on WPRB in Princeton, at Princeton University at their radio station, with the help of a fellow named Jeff Town, who's the producer for Echoes on NPR, who I've kind of come to know through
No
a couple,
shit.
yeah, a
That's
couple of
awesome.
social circles that we've sort of both have occupied for a pretty long time. So he helped me kind of stitch those two performances together and really just kind of put a nice polish on it. But they're just stereo recordings. They're not.
Ah,
There's no overdubs. There's no multi tracks or
wow.
anything like that. It's just whatever went out live to air. That's what's on the record, but we just kind of blended the two together in spots because, like, oh, this oscillator was a little bit more in tune on that
Mm.
recording versus that or whatever. But there's no real fix it in the mix magic
Mhm.
going on. It was just like, hey, let's pick which one of these
That's
performances
pretty
really kind of nailed it.
awesome.
So Jeff did that, and I put it out as a CD, and it sold really really well. I did a pressing of like 100 of them, limited numbered, the whole
Mhm.
nine. And I think I've only got like a handful of them left,
Nice,
but
man.
that worked out pretty well. So then on the other end of the spectrum, and that was done under my artistic alias STAER, ST Delta ER, and that's something I've
You
been doing since about.
let me put a pin in that. While I'm going to use this break point where we're in transitioning, just to give a quick shout out to people in the chat room. We have Dan McCullough, the Silver Walker himself, in the chat room. Liz Villa, John Cross says it's your boy. Greetings from Earth, says Syrinx. Dan from Missing in Stars says, hey, Ian and Brian. And Dan says, why the swearing? Oh, no, my ears. I'm fucking sorry, man. And then right. So thank you. Edit point punch back in to Ian Stare.
Sure. So I had been doing the STAER stuff since about 2014, and I kind of leaned really hard into the ambient sort of type of music. I was doing prior to that, I was doing a lot of, what you could term industrial,
Hmm.
whatever kind of stuff. And a lot of it was just kind of like, let's see if I can make a track that sounds like
Mm,
B&V Nation. All right,
right.
cool, I did that. But they do that better than I do it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
why the hell am I going to try to reinvent that wheel? And same thing with, I'd do a track. Oh, let's see if I can make it something like sound like Daniel Meyer. But Daniel
Hmm.
Meyer does Daniel Meyer the best that Daniel Meyer can. Why
Really a
am I
leading
trying to,
expert, I would say, on
yeah,
Dan. Yeah.
So I kind of leaned heavily into the direction of, all right, let's turn off the drum machines,
Mm.
stick them in the corner, and make them think about what they've done, and try to explore a different way of going about making music.
Mhm.
Again, leaning on that whole live thing. You know what I mean? Just sit in front of some synthesizers and compose, and try to get more involved in the creation of a mood rather
Mhm.
than trying to sit in front of Ableton or Logic or whatever and just meticulously nickel
Mhm.
dime everything to within an inch of its death. So that's kind of what the whole ethos of the whole STAER thing is. So
Mhm.
I felt in June of this year, um, I kind of had a lot of conflicted emotions. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The world was absolutely on fire.
Right.
And I've been in quarantine since March of this year. You know what I mean? I've
Mhm.
been in these basically in my home, surrounded by these four walls, pretty much since March.
I hear that.
And I'm watching through my little digital screen as the world at large just began to burn itself down, and riots, and just a tremendous amount of chaos in the world. And
Mhm.
the whole point of the whole stayer thing was to try to kind of create this sort of anchor point, you know what I mean, where you
Mm.
could kind of like lose yourself in that and sort of like forget about everything else. It's very external, you know what I mean.
Mhm.
It's space, it's far away, it's abstract. And I started kind of writing some stuff that felt a lot more internal. You know what I mean? It
Mm.
felt a lot darker. It felt a lot more like it came from a place that was more like what the music I listen to is. Industrial stuff, anywhere from the
Mhm.
old, Test Apartment, Coil stuff, on up through like modern stuff that's like off, uh, you know any of the Deus records,
Mhm.
a lot of the current stuff, High Functioning Flesh, whatever,
Oh, cool.
Clack,
Yeah.
those types of things. And it started to kind of feel more like that. And it sort of turned into this, let's take a different set of rules and let's do a recording using this different set of rules. So now it's not so much live. I
Mhm.
can sort of dive into
Okay.
doing stuff sequencer based, but to do things that felt, um, just not lofty and cosmic, but still sort of cinematic. And I hate to use the dirty I word, but more industrial
Uh-huh.
influenced. And the iterated process EP kind of came out of that. And
Awesome.
it was also, I made a conscious decision to use my own name for it, because with the whole going under the moniker of Stayer, it's sort of like search engine kryptonite. I've got that delta in there, and that there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? It's because
Right.
like there is actually a Scandinavian like experimental noise band going by the name STAER,
Okay.
and none of them in that band are named that. That's actually my legal last name,
Yeah.
so like kind of I feel like I have like the right to squat on that.
Right.
But to differentiate it, even though that band is defunct, I figured, all right, just to visually and
Mhm.
just legally differentiate it, I started out doing the Delta thing.
Right.
And um, so to make it a little bit easier to find, and also because it was the idea of the Ian Stair stuff is also to kind of branch off into doing scoring
Mm.
and video game music or music for picture. So
Oh,
it was
wow,
kind
okay.
of also like, let me make this accessible in terms of like a business card. Like, let me put
Right.
my actual name on this. So if someone wants to find me, here's this little tip of the iceberg you can latch onto, and it's very easy. It's Googleable, whatever.
Mhm.
And then kind of people could branch out and get into the rest of the catalog that way. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's still instrumental. There's still no
Mhm.
vocals. It's still very abstract in that I try to make music that people can kind of approach and kind of experience through their own lens, and kind of overlay their own personality onto
Mm.
what they think the music's about, rather than have lyrics or vocals that kind of guide them through a particular narrative. It's still very much about being subjective.
Interesting. So it's because the platform was almost different enough. You felt like, okay, this is Delta Stair, and now this is Ian Stair, and there's obviously a name. There's some similarities between the projects, but the I love that the rules are different
Yeah.
for this thing. Let's actually take a little bit of a listen. This will be both of the projects we just talked about. That was Stair and Ian Stair. We were just talking about. You can't hear us when we're talking. We were talking about like super secret stuff, but like mostly just how it's in use in some games right now, because it seems very gamer friendly to this podcaster. But then again, we make all things sort of gamer friendly. So that was pretty great. What's up to Nick Jones of the Boundless
Nick.
in the chat room? What's going on, man? Um, so you cannot be contained in just two projects. You have uh, sort of on the other end of the spectrum uh, a very in your face project, Pretty Hate Machine, the Nine Inch Nails tribute band. Tell us about that experience and why a Nine Inch Nails tribute band.
All right. So that one came together in a very interesting way. I got basically approached or hired to do that by my friend Brandon. Brandon and I used to tour together. He was a tour manager. We did a few tours together. Lived on a bus for a few summers together. And about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, he had kids,
Hmm.
and so he left road life and kind of took up residence as a production manager for a Live Nation venue down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as his kids were starting to grow up, he thought to himself, I'd love to introduce my kids to music. He's a
Hmm.
drummer,
Okay.
and I'd like to, get kind of back to being a performing musician and, kind of have something to do with my kids and have music instruments set up in the house and whatnot. And he was thinking, I'd love to be in a band, but he didn't. And I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into being in an original performing band. You know what I mean? You got to have songwriting, you got to have,
Sure.
the right mix of people to work together to be creative, and rehearsals, bookings. You got to kind of start everything from the absolute bottom and kind of
Hmm.
work yourself up. A lot of the people watching this probably all
Yeah, probably
know
all.
y'all know the struggle. So he, as a production manager, he also worked with a lot of tribute acts, and he
Hmm.
saw that, all right, so these are musicians that typically have their own original projects, but they also do these tribute acts where they can kind of, you know, show off their musicianship that may be evident in their own original projects, but also, do songs that more people are familiar with. and they tend to pull much larger crowds because the people are already familiar with the music, and you can get two or three tribute acts booked into a decently sized venue,
Hmm.
and it's fairly lucrative,
Yeah.
and it works out really well. So he's thinking to himself, all right, I might want to do that, but who would I like to
Okay.
play? Like, I have a very limited, scope of music. And he started thinking, he's like, I'd love to do a Nine Inch Nails tribute,
Hmm.
but like that's a fucking hard one to crack. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's a really tall order, right?
Right.
You can't
It's
just do that with like, you can't do it like, I mean, I'm not to take anything away from someone who may be doing Nirvana, but Nirvana's,
right.
bass, guitar, and a drum kit, and you're pretty much there. You just
It
have to be able to play the parts. Whereas like Nine Inch Nails, it's like, dude, that's a lot of sound design. There's a
That's
lot of
it's
electronics.
archaeology basically. Like, how do
Yeah.
I reconstruct, let's say, the eponymous Pretty Hate Machine with whatever like Mac 1 that he made it with. Now I gotta like redo that? I don't know.
So Brandon had remembered that there was this one point where we were on tour and we were playing at, honestly, now that I think of it, it was in your current city. We were playing House of Blues in Boston, and
No, nice.
during the day, our drummer, who was a cat named Jason Sutter, who he's played with like Manson, he's played with I think he played with Zombie. I forget who else. He's
Wow.
been a session guy with a bunch of people, and he was booked to do a drum clinic at Guitar Center, right across the from
Sure.
like a block away from House
Yeah.
of Blues, like literally across Fenway from where House of Blues is.
Look at you.
And so we had kind of taken a little field trip there to kind of go accompany Jason while he did this clinic, and I was over in the keyboard department just noodling around with a few things, and I was playing some of the licks from Hesitation Marks, the Nine Inch Nails record that had just
Mhm.
come out at the time. This is 2013, I think, maybe. And Brandon poked his head around because he's like, "Who's that playing Nine Inch Nails?" And he's like, "Dude, I didn't know you played keyboards." I'm like, "Bro, I'm hired to be your lighting director on this tour. I'm not going to sit here on the bus and be like, 'Hey guys, I play music too.' Like they don't want to hear that from me. I'm hired to do a job.
Sure.
I'm
Well,
hired
that's
to be their lighting director. Program the lights, make sure that that task is done. Stay out of our hair and do your
and
job."
what tour is this that you're on?
That was a package tour called Under the Sun. It was like at the time that year, I want to say it was Smash Mouth, Blues Traveler, Sugar
Damn.
Ray, I think Gin Blossoms, but maybe it wasn't Gin Blossoms that year. We did it 3 years, and
Okay.
like each year it was slightly different.
I
Like
see.
one year we had Fastball and Vertical Horizon. Another year we had Blues Traveler. Another year we had Better Than Ezra. It was like a lot of '90s
Uh-huh.
radio pop bands. So it was definitely like bands you've heard of.
Right.
Um, but it was cool because it was just like everybody played for like 35 minutes, and it was just all the hits.
Wow.
Like this
Yeah.
band would come on, do like their six big FM radio hits, and then it was like boom, half hour changeover, and then the next band would go on, and I
Mhm.
was running lights for everybody, and at the end of the night it was just like, okay, cool, let's pack everything up, put it back on the trailers, get back on our buses, and have a good time. It wasn't like it was enjoyable because it wasn't I've done the opposite end of touring. You know what I mean? Where it's like, that's actually like how I met you, was like on
Yeah.
the opposite end of touring, when it was like I was out with Emergence and we were all like, piled into a white panel van, with a little
Oh,
U-Haul on the back,
yeah.
had a couch in the back of the van. I was riding on the road cases that had the lights in them,
Oh,
and
God.
we were like, a brief aside, I do like telling this story. The first day that I met Brian, we were playing a show in uh, was it Cedar Rapids?
That's where we ultimately played together.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, that's right. Because I had met you at Club Anything in
yes.
Milwaukee,
Yeah.
and then we when we play, we had like run into one another, but we hadn't really got acquainted
Right.
professionally. But we were playing in Cedar Rapids, and the venue for the day had canceled for some reason, and we got the venue moved on the day of the show. And so I kind of walked in going, all right, this is a little bit weird. We're in a completely non-venue venue, and they had rented. I mean, they did a really good job of
Yeah.
selling the show. They brought in a PA. There was basically enough power to do the show, and so it was like it was like the fifth or sixth date of our tour, and I was kind of feeling it because, again, I'm riding in the back of a van,
Mhm.
like on a bunch of road cases, banging my head into the ceiling, like, definitely paying the dues. And so here I am setting up all my lights. We had a fairly complicated lighting package we had brought out with us. That was when Emergence was on negative gain, when negative gain was like still kind of ramping up as a label.
Right.
Cruciform Injection and Emergence and a few other
Yavin
bands.
4.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm setting stuff up, programming lights and doing whatever. And here comes the local support band, and I'm watching them set their gear up, and I'm like, all right, they've got this Yamaha keyboard with some Star Wars figures glued to it, and I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, let's see what this is about. This looks all right. This looks pretty cool. All right, this is going to go one of two ways, and this can either be like really interesting or really like, oh man,
Yeah.
who booked these guys. And so I watched you do your set, and like I was like, holy shit! Like, I mean, I don't think you had put out a record yet. You know what I mean?
That
You
was
were,
pre-first album. We
yeah,
had we played what I called a Nord Poverty, which was a CD player and a cereal box.
yeah, yeah, man. Like you had done like but you had done like English license. You had
Yeah,
done
we
Code, like a
right.
bunch of the big rocks in the jar on the first record.
Yeah, yeah.
You were definitely killing those. And I'm just watching from the back of the room before we went on. I'm like, dude, I got to buy one of this dude's shirts. And I asked you at the end of the night, I'm like, dude, do you have your stuff up? Are you on, iTunes, anything? And you're like, not yet. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to keep an eye on this
uh,
dude. And then eventually, finally, you had put out, a few records, and I kind of followed you as you, kind of built up and built up and built up. And then,
yeah.
later on down the road, we did run into each other, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but, so Pretty Hate Machine. So Brandon had brought me on board to do this tribute act for,
Mhm.
he wanted to do a Nine Inch Nails tribute, and it was a tall order, and I said, all right, I'll give it a try. What I'll do is I'll try to do two or three songs. Let me see if I can get it close enough,
Mhm.
close enough for rock and roll, and then if it doesn't suck, we'll move forward. And I did three songs. I did Closer,
Mhm.
I did Terrible Lie, and I did Wish.
Mhm.
Because those were kind of like three standout spots on three very separate, very different sounding records. And I
Mhm.
figured if I could kind of nail, no pun intended, each one of those, I'd have a fighting chance
Right.
to take on other stuff. And believe it or not, it turned out better
Mm.
than I would have hoped. I did a lot of research. It was a lot of diving into forum posts, magazine articles, going back and train spotting videos to see, all
Mm.
right, what gear was used, um,
Wow.
like that kind of stuff, like doing like serious
Science.
research to try to get the sounds exact. Because Nine
Uh,
Inch Nails is one of those bands that, like, if you don't do it right, right away, and it's like it's like the clone SpongeBob. It's just like you know
yeah.
uh it's
It's
just it's not going to read right, and it's just going to be kind of you guys are
yeah.
doing a poor job of this, and I'm not having it. So um
Instead of Wish, it'll be the Nine Inch Nails you bought on Wish.
yeah, exactly,
Heyo.
precisely, exactly. This is like, we have Nine Inch Nails at home, and like, the Nine Inch Nails,
Yeah.
it's like, it's like a little box of thumbtacks.
Quick shout
So
out to fellow Deltoid Brant Showers in the chat room, and
Brett,
oh hi Heidi, and Dan McCullough says, oh figure out how a broken prophet VS sounds, no big deal. Um, exactly, very germane to what we're talking about. So
yeah,
it sounds like sounds from this conversation and audibly when you listen to it, mission accomplished. Like you
yeah.
pretty much.
Brandon got together, like he basically did like an Ocean's 11 kind of thing, where he brought in all these ringers
Uh-huh.
from other bands that he had worked with. So he got like a killer vocalist, two really good guitar players, an amazing bass player who also has an incredible singing voice. So we have basically the entire front line of the band is all just amazing vocalists slash
Mhm.
instrumentalists. So Danny, who's our stage right guitar player, plays in a band called Falling Through April. He also plays some live electronic drums at points in the set. And we've got
Mhm.
Jordan, who is our bass player and secondary vocalist, has a band called Killicoy. They are, a very well established original band. Then we've got Adam Nelson, who's our vocalist, who plays in a band called Something Clever, which I just think is the greatest name for a band. It's like we need to come up with a name. I don't know, just think of something clever. Um, and so Adam sings, and then our stage left guitar player, her name is Kelly, and she's also in Something Clever, and she just does an amazing job, playing mostly lead guitar. So she's sort of our Robin Fink of the band, whereas Danny is our Danny Loner of the band, and then we've
Mhm.
got Jordan kind of filling in the Pino Palladino sort of role on, he's an alternate Danny Loner doing like backup vocals and whatever. Then we've got Brandon on drums, and then me kind of sitting in the back doing the whole Liam Howlett thing behind a bunch of
Nice.
keyboards and kind of pulling off the dual wield keyboard thing. But
Nice.
we had never played together until our first gig. We
Really?
literally mostly just did,
It's a
I
dice
finished the
roll?
tracks. I did fully produced tracks with everything, with everything except vocals and guitars. So the drums were in there, the keyboard parts were in there,
Mhm.
the bass parts, everything was in there, and so people could hear what it would sound like. And then when I sent the tracks out to the band, they would do the guitar parts or
Mhm.
sing or play their bass parts over it. And then live, what I do is I just basically take the drum stems and other stems and just mute them. So
Mm.
really, all that's coming through on tracks is just like rhythmic parts and some keyboard parts. But I'll play a bunch of keyboards and samples live. But I'm gonna land the plane on that one. The first time we ever played together was our first gig, which was a sold out festival appearance in front of 2,300 people. No pressure.
Wow.
And it went very, very well. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Basically, we got use of the venue the night before to kind of just
Oh,
do
dope.
like a quick in-ear mix. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
To make sure everything actually worked. And we ran through the set, and it was like, holy shit, when I first started hearing people through my ears, and I heard the guitar tones everybody had, and I heard Adam's voice, and I was just like, holy shit, dude, this thing's
Yeah,
got
you
some
get
depth.
that just
It's
that
like, all
whole
right, this is gonna be
body.
real. And we went out, did it, killed it. And after that, we started getting booking,
Okay.
and that pretty much brings us up to the beginning of 2020, which was we were set to start doing a tour, and then COVID happened, and the whole thing went
Yeah, well, it was a downward spiral, is what you're saying. But the well, let's take let's take a little bit of a look at Pretty Hate Machine. Nope, I fucked that up. That's we'll get to that in a second. This is Pretty Hate Machine. Okay, we're back. That was Pretty Hate Machine. Pretty awesome. And friend of the show, Eric Ayler says, "Hey, nice diffusers, Ian." Um, oh, Eric, you're setting me up perfectly because I wanted to talk about we're obviously friends on Facebook, and you've been putting so much effort into studio construction. It looks like a museum. Looks amazing. Tell me about the experience of sort of molding your workspace like clay almost.
Sure. So it's really funny when I go back and I look at my, like, your Facebook memories from 5 years ago,
Yeah,
when I had like you know two fucking keyboards and like a
right.
little drum machine. Like, I mean, that was more like 10 years ago. But um, I've I've had a pretty, I guess I'm trying to figure out which best way to kind of jump off which specific diving board to sum it up. But
We got
um,
time. It's all good.
I've had a pretty long career in the music industry. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
In terms of working, for I worked for a music retailer for about 10 years as a regional manager and product trainer. Then, after I did the touring thing for about 5 years, I got a very attractive offer to go work for a major manufacturer, which I
Mm.
did for a few years. And then I got another gig working as a manufacturer representative for a different market vertical. But so it's kind of put me in this position where I've had a chance to kind of really uh, build up a fairly decent amount of knowledge about instruments. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Anything from keyboards and synthesizers to um, effects, guitars, drums, microphones,
Okay.
studio
Wow.
technology, stuff like that. And it's got me in quote unquote in the room with a lot of engineers
Hmm.
and producers and stuff like that who were it's just been extremely one of those. All right, I'm going to shut up and listen to what Eddie Kramer has to say for the next
Awesome.
5 minutes. You know what I mean? Or I'm just going to shut up and listen to Frank Filippetti talk for 20 minutes. Or I'm going to sit in the room with Kevin Key and just shut up and listen to what Kevin has to say. um, and so I've kind of built up this. You said museum, but one of the things I really do try to ensure is that this is not just to look at. You know what I mean?
Oh
These are
God, I
these
love
are
that.
these are player pieces. So a lot of times what I get is I've kind of become this home for wayward synthesizers where someone will have, and it kind of became this self-fulfilling prophecy thing where, and no pun intended.
I was gonna say it if you weren't.
Um, so yeah, they're just flying today. It's definitely gonna be that kind of
That's
day.
the Space Couch
Um,
way.
so I got a couple of unique fixer uppers to quote Ghostbusters, and that turned into learning how a lot of these things work internally and being like, all right, I've got this ARP Odyssey. It's not doing the thing. Let me figure out how to make it do the thing. All right, so open it up and start to get involved in the DIY aspect
Mhm.
of that. And that turned into more people saying, hey, I've got this broken synthesizer. You want to give it a shot? Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. I don't care
Awesome,
what it is.
awesome.
I don't care what kind of condition it is. Just give it to me. I'm not going to sit there and nitpick about what it is. Just let me take it off your hands. Let me do the triage. Let me figure out what I can do to it, if anything, and I'll get it up and working if I can. The the net effect of this being I've had to get really good at managing space. So I've had to turn this room, which I'm going to do like a little quick panorama here of like what's
Ooh.
going on in here. I've got a lot of crap all loaded into, you know, I've got this
Holy
stuff over here,
shit.
and you can see there's some shelving happening in there. And then I've got, I'm trying to do this really slow as not to make people's heads, break off.
Yeah.
But like, I've
We're already
got,
traveling at light speed out here in space, but wasn't there a Futurama episode like this, says Ayler? Kinda, yeah.
so
Eric
I've got
Ayler, by
all
the way, mastered much of the music you heard earlier.
Yeah, Eric mastered all but one, and Ithra from Fires did the first one for me.
Oh, nice.
So it's definitely a keep it within the family sort
Hmm.
of arrangement where I try to work with people I know and try to throw them my business. But Eric's done a fantastic job on the three most recent STAER releases as well as iterated processes. I trust Eric implicitly, and
Hmm.
I try to recommend additional people to go to him whenever they need work done. I think I just turned my friend James Watson, aka H, onto
Oh,
Eric, so
nice.
they're
Well,
getting
all
that.
right. Oh, it's a family reunion today. Jason Hollis says you had me at crap, and Mark Truman of Choke Chain says Eric does a great job. So
Yeah.
good stuff.
So
But back to the
DIY.
studio we just did a little tour of.
Yeah, so the DIY thing, as far as managing the space, also comes into play in trying to turn a 12-foot by 15-foot room into something that can churn out something
Yeah.
that when I present it to somebody like Eric, he doesn't kind of look at me and go, what did you do here? What are you giving me? What's this bullshit? So, um, I've tried to do like, on the walls, I've got these DIY low frequency bass absorbers that I've made out
Mm,
of mineral fiber. And on the back wall, there's some quadratic diffusers back there to kind of just, tame the space. And it all comes down to just, doing a little bit of math. There's a lot
mhm,
of apps on the internet you can get just to be basically they've kind of taken a lot of the guesswork out of it. You just
mm.
plug the dimensions in. Yeah, you kind of have to be really
Really?
vicious with a measuring tape, but you just basically go, all right. First of all, you have to set the room up correctly. Correctly, not that there's
R
any really correct way to do it, but the most recommended way, to have your monitors equidistant from any side walls, have them a little bit far away from the wall behind where the speakers are located, and then just basically plug the numbers in. Go, all right,
Mhm,
how far away from the center line of the monitor speakers are you? How far are the walls from the monitor speakers? How far from the back wall are they? What's the depth of your room? What's the height of your room? What's the width? You just basically plug all those numbers in, and it tells you fundamentally where you want to place these panels, and it'll just
mhm.
basically it'll at least tell you, all right, here's where they should go. And then it's up to you to build them out of the materials that'll do the job as far as absorbing the problematic frequencies that are going to be in the room. But again, that's all math too. You just basically tell it, okay, my ceiling is 8 foot tall. Based on that, based on the relationship of that number to the speed of sound, that's where you're going to have a big weird buildup in the room
Okay.
on that axis, and there's going to be another weird buildup on the front to back axis, and there's going to be another
Oh,
weird
wow, okay, I had no
side to
idea.
side. So as long as you know those numbers,
Alright.
you can just kind of plug them in, and it'll tell you a little bit about what's going on, and then you just have to kind of do a little fine tuning, a little adjustment. But um, it's it's kind of obscene how inexpensively you can do it
Okay.
if you want to get your hands literally dirty, and get fiberglass insulation all over your hands, and go to your local craft store, and buy some black burlap, and then go to your
Mhm.
local home improvement store, and buy some very easy to use construction supplies that you don't need. The other problem is, I don't have access to woodworking tools, so I can't do. All right, I'm going to take this out to my garage, and I'm going to grab my bandsaw, and I'm going to grab my whatever. This all has to be able to be done in the living room of it. I mean, at the time, this was done in the living room of an
Mm.
apartment,
Wow.
and it was done using kitchen shears and a pop rivet gun, and some spray adhesive and stuff that I could do without having to have access to a workshop. So it's definitely it's doable, and
Very cool.
yeah.
Jason Hollis says, "Talking earlier to me." Dan says, "If I did a project with Ian, it would be called Missing in Stairs." Ha ha. Oh, and Torrent Vaccine is here. What's up, Brad? Um, everybody's coming out for the Big Ian episode. Oh, and the hour is just flying by. So
Right.
if you were going to give a tip to anybody that was sort of setting up their own home studio, would it be to calculate diffusion with apps?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I would have to give one little pithy nugget of advice,
Hmm.
is I do see a lot of folks who kind of capitulate to the whole gas thing, gear acquisition syndrome. The new affordable desktop analog synthesizer comes out, or oh, Dave Smith Instruments just released this thing.
Mm,
Spend some money on your room.
okay.
Take the next $250 that you save up, you know what I mean, from
Hmm.
from whatever passive income you may have set up from Bandcamp sales, or your paper route, or whatever it is that you do that helps fund, and let's face it, most of us still have day jobs, and we're not
Oh
doing
yeah.
this music thing full time. But um, you know, take whatever discretionary spending you may
Hmm.
have budgeted for your musical endeavors, and maybe aim a little bit of that towards making sure that your room reflects the creative environment that you want it to be. And it doesn't have to be terribly expensive. I mean, the absorber panels that are all around the room here, I mean, those cost me, I think it was a grand total of 120
Really?
bucks.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
So
And you're just gonna.
it's definitely not, it's not expensive. You just have to kind of, just will yourself to go, I'm going to postpone buying that little blip loop box for 90 days or 6 months. And this time I'm going to do the unglamorous thing and take some measurements of my room and
Right.
improve the environment that I'm
Put a
working in.
put a couple character points into charisma. The
Right?
um, we David Cody says Ian played a mean Juno in Dead Leaves Rising. We are time is just flying by. I'm going to jump around a bit because there's a couple things I want to get in. Tell me about playing with Silverwalks.
It's a blast. It's super fun. I've known Dan since I met Dan when I was touring as a lighting guy with Atari Teenage Riot back in the day. And that in and of itself is fodder for tons of road stories. That was a great experience working for Alec Empire
That's
and
so
getting
crazy.
to, the people that we hung out with on that tour was it was incredible. Like one night in New York, we're leaving the venue and like LP gets in the van with us and we go driving to go, find a diner that we can park the van out that's in Manhattan. And I'm sitting there with fucking LP from Run the Jewels in the van. And I'm like, all right, so this is my life now. All right, cool. But
Wow.
we played a venue in Lancaster, Pennsylvania called the
Sure.
Chameleon Club. And Dan was the person who was putting on the show. And so I ran into Dan there, and we kind of hit it off really quickly. And when Dan pushed forward with writing and releasing his own material as Silverwalks, he approached me and another cat named Tim to kind of help him execute that stuff live. And it's been a real great time.
Awesome.
We've had a lot of success. Dan has a really great set of skills in terms of songwriting. He writes really good, really catchy songs. He's also got tons of friends and is really good at networking. So we've managed to end up being direct support for some insane bands that I never would have thought I'd see myself
Nice.
playing with. Assemblage 23, ChemLab, C-Tech, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's just been mind blowing
Yeah.
to meet some of those folks and get to hang out backstage with fucking Jared from ChemLab and
Yeah.
Mark from Cuban 8 and JL from Front 242. It's just like, okay, this is my life now.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. And it's also really cool to do the Silverwalks thing because I mean that's Dan's baby,
Hmm.
and I just basically show up. I help him execute what he needs to get done, but at the end of the night, I don't have to sit there and worry about the stuff that I do with the STAER stuff, the
Okay.
EST stuff, the Pretty Hate Machine stuff, where I'm like designing the graphics, doing all the Bandcamp updates, doing all the social media pushing, doing all the promotion and all that kind of stuff, where I
Hmm.
am kind of like running my own little label. Whereas
Right.
Silverwalks, it's just like, dude, I get to go on stage and have fun and bang on drums for 45 minutes, and then go chill out in the green room with a ginger beer and some cheese and crackers, and and sit back and kind of be like,
Yeah. Very cool. Um, I I accidentally played a second of this earlier, so let's just do the whole thing. This is a little bit of Ian Stair live at I think the aforementioned radio gig
yeah,
and a what looks to me like a church, but
yeah.
we'll get into that. Here's the clip. Live. Okay, so we had the aforementioned radio show and gathering series both out of Philly. That was awesome. DJ D42 in the chat room. So that looked amazing. Uh, do I still have you?
Oh yeah.
Okay, sorry. I couldn't tell. Um, Well done. And we're just gonna power through
Yeah.
because let's create the Ian Stare superhero. So, like, I need to know like what your superpowers might be and what your kryptonite might be, and maybe an arch nemesis.
All right. So like, um, I'd say that like in general, like my superpower, if I have one,
Hmm.
is like the power of belief. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like just believing in something
Oh, okay.
strong enough to like make it real.
Mm.
Like when I got into starting to do lighting,
Hmm.
I just was like, I'm a lighting guy. And
Okay.
now I'm just gonna do whatever I have to do to make that real and really like get to it. And then like, it's like I'm gonna be an electronic musician and let me
Mm.
believe in that enough to do everything that I
I
have
love
to
that.
do to learn enough about it to be good and competent and produce a product that's quality enough that people will appreciate it. And I don't feel like I'm ripping people off by asking them to maybe give me a couple bucks for it.
Hmm.
Um on and then the other power is fitting lots of stuff into tiny spaces.
Very, very, very good, very good. And I'll throw in like you know how Superman can fly and he's got the heat vision and the strength and the cold breath. Like I'll throw in cold breath as actually uses it, man. Like because you don't get a keyboard to just take like $1,000 Instagram picture. Like you actually just you use the thing, which is so rare. Uh,
That's yeah, that's a pet peeve is, like there's definitely, and like I it's almost like a low key like mission statement is that there's a lot of folks who like, you see this modular synthesizer behind me and like all this shiny shit. And like, there's a lot of people that, you don't need any of this. I just want to say that
right.
out. You don't need this. If you have a copy of Reason, you're good. You know what I mean? Or if you've got a copy of, FL Studio, use it. You don't
Thousand
need this
percent.
shit. I'm not a snob about it. I just happen to I get along really well with hardware interfaces. I like having knobs to turn and jacks to plug and whatever. I like the fact that each individual instrument has its own little constraint of rules that makes you work with it a certain way. And you don't get the ability to do X if you're using a Y. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like a Prophet 5 is different than a Juno 106, is different than a microwave just because of the way the layout is set and the way the designer designed it. But I definitely, I'm not just having all this as shiny window dressing and then I do
Right.
everything with stock logic instruments.
Oh,
It's
I know.
definitely used. But kryptonite, my kryptonite is that I tend to say yes to all of the
Yeah.
things. Someone will say, "Hey, can you do a remix?" Yeah. "Hey, can you play a show?" Yeah.
Okay.
"Hey, can you come do lights for this show?" Yeah. "Hey, can you do sound for my show?" Yeah. And then I realize I have massively
Uh,
overextended myself. I'm overbooked and I'm just not allowing myself enough time and space and energy to get shit done. So one of the best things I've kind of had to learn how to do, and one of the best things about 2020 is having to learn how to kind of carve out the time and the space to get all of those things done and say to a few people, I've had to say,
mm,
look, I want to be able to do a really good job. And in order to do a really good job, I can't do this job. You know what I mean? Maybe get me on the next one and, I'll put in 110%. But right now I've got these other
okay.
five things on my plate in
It's a
addition to,
skill.
you know,
It's
I don't
pretty
I don't ever
awesome.
want to half-ass anything. And
Totally.
so I that's the one thing I don't want to have is, like the one little thing I can count on is that hopefully whatever I've done be what it is as it may, has at least a certain level of integrity to it.
Mhm.
And I don't want to turn something in that's just me half-assing and being like, I'm just going to put a 4/4 kick and a couple of claps and have this, bass line on the off, eighth
Right.
notes and just lay the vocal over it and turn it in. I can't
Not
do
an
that. I
ounce
can't
of
do that and look at
modulation,
myself in the
same thing
morning.
for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Uh, oh, I love it. I love it. Um, David Cody says Ian is a savant. Tell him or show him how to do something once and you never have to show him again. It's unreal. Good skill to have. All sorts of tools in the utila belt. Um, your gear, as speaking of gear, as the A team. So which one's Face, BA, Murdoch, and Hannibal?
All right. So Face is the Studio Logic sledge, and that
Okay.
one is over my shoulder there. It's the top one,
Uh-huh.
dark, black on black, murdered out, very pretty. You
Very
know what I mean?
pretty.
It's definitely the
Face is
pretty
the prettiest
face.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
And
what's
then Murdoch. Murdoch is the modular.
okay,
Uh,
just
in that
unpredictable?
it's unpredictable, but not in like the sketchy, unreliable way.
Okay.
It's just unpredictable in the like sort of like you're doing a choose your own adventure kind of thing, and you're not quite sure which decision branches. It's like or like playing like Detroit Become Human or something like that, where like you've got all these different branching storylines that could happen and you're never
Yeah.
really sure by adjusting this one little thing how that's going to propagate throughout the system and
Okay.
create this. And then once you do it, you have to go, all right, I'm not touching anything.
Yeah.
Hit record, we're going
Yeah.
now. But it's 2 o'clock in the morning, we are fucking going
Right.
now. Hit record, because 8 hours from now when the temperature changes, it's not going to be the same.
It's true.
um
Oh, it's funny.
ba
Yeah.
BA is the ARP Odyssey. I've got
Okay.
an original 1978 ARP Odyssey that is just it's beefy. You know what I mean? It's
Okay.
a monster.
Right. Right. And
Very powerful. And then Hannibal is the Korg Kronos.
what's that?
The Korg Kronos is this. It's kind of behind me, and let me.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm mirrored here, so it's
Yeah.
that dude down there.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful workstation. It kind of it's a desert island instrument.
Mm.
It's got like 9 different sound engines built into
Oh,
it.
wow,
Anything
okay.
from analog synthesis to wavetable to FM to string modeling, analog modeling. Like it's got a sequencer, sampler. It's got an SSD drive in it, so it can do 16 tracks of audio recording. It's a heavy hitter, and it's got a shitload of effects in it. So if I like, it's a sound design monster. So it's
Love it.
definitely I lean on that pretty heavily. Actually, all the ones that I named, you know what I mean. They
Uh-huh.
they they all get a lot of use. The
Very
modular gets a
cool.
lot of use. The Chronos, the Sledge.
That was the perfect answer. I love that. You knocked that one out of the park. Searing Star says, I love it when a chord comes together. uh, Heidi says the Juno is better for the popcorn setting. Our dog's name is Juno. So let's go out maybe on this. Do you have um, you have this alter ego that tours with bands big and small, and you've been a lighting director, tour manager. Do you have any tours that comes out of the world of working at, or excuse me, any stories that come out of the world of working as a tour engineer?
Um, there's a lot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh
There's
yeah.
definitely
I
a
mean,
lot, and there's a lot
every
of
night.
discretion that goes into telling or not telling
Sure.
those stories. Because I mean, there's definitely some hilarious stories about
Well,
like being on a bus and then having such and such famous rock star walk out from the back in her
right.
underwear, like and being like, "Hey brother, where's the peanut butter?" And you'd be like, "Oh, it's in that cabinet over there. Right on, man. Oh, what are you watching? The Avengers? Yeah, dude. Oh, dude, that movie kicks ass." But one of the funny stories that I think the folks in the audience for Space Couch will dig is when I was on tour with Atari Teenage Riot the second time. I did 2 tours with ATR, and the second time I was out with them, we were doing Coachella.
Wow.
We did both weekends of Coachella, and that was rad in and of itself.
That's
Just because
amazing.
it was monstrous, it was a huge event for a band like ATR to play.
Right.
But in between those shows, we did one show in LA and we did one show in New York. And at the show in LA, Kevin Key showed up to do some performance with our sound guy for those tours was Otto von Schirach. And
Wow.
so Kevin's friends with Otto, and through Otto, I had mentioned to Kevin, "Hey man, I heard that you're doing these Eurorack reissues of these classic Plan B Eurorack modules. I'd really be interested in picking." We were actually I had lunch with him the day before, and I brought it up at lunch. But um, the day of the show, Kevin shows up before the show, and we're all kind of backstage in our green rooms or whatever. And I had to go and get something obscene. It was like $500, for
Uh-huh.
like these 2 Euro rack modules. I had to go get $500 out of an ATM and like LA,
Okay.
and I'm walking back with like $500 in my pocket, and I'm paying Kevin Key, and we all know that Kevin is very partial to hanging out with the green guy, right? So um, here I am walking into this backstage dressing room with $500, and I hand it to Kevin, and I walk out with this bag. And it has all of the impressions of having been some sort of like shady dealing,
Right?
but it was really just buying some synthesizer modules.
It's the
And I'm sitting
cleanest. Yeah.
back there and I'm just like, perusing these things. I'm looking at them and like, it was a funny story because it had all the impressions of being something that was
Right.
completely not on the up and up, but it was a very wholesome encounter.
No, you either just did a drug deal with Skinny Puppy or bought synthesizers. The
Oh,
other,
it's still a drug. I mean,
that's
they call
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah. You beat me
it's
to
definitely Euro crack. It's addictive.
it. Oh, I love it. We need to know what is next for the mighty Ian Stair.
Um, whew, I'll say, given the current environment we're living in, with being quarantined and unable to do touring and unable to play live shows, I'm kind of behind the curve as far as like you with doing streaming, and even
Mhm.
my own partner who does Twitch gaming streaming and crafting and stuff like that. I got to up my video game, uh, not my video game, but my video game. I'm looking into getting a really decent Sony mirrorless video camera, and a tripod and a set of lenses and things like that, and then kind of learning how to
Okay.
do. I've been getting my beak wet with doing video editing. Like
Oh,
for a Pretty
cool.
Machine, we have a really decently populated YouTube page. So if you go to YouTube and look for PHM Band, so it's the abbreviation of
Uh-huh.
Pretty Hate Machine, you'll see that there's some self-produced video content. The early stuff is kind of rudimentary, but I've gotten better about
That's all you
using.
editing those videos then.
Yeah,
That's
well,
awesome, man.
the live stuff is professionally done, but like the demo videos is
Uh-huh.
me doing the editing. But so I want to up my camera game, you know what I mean, and be
Mhm.
able to host live streams of.
Awesome.
So
Oh, well, uh, everybody, Spaceketeers watching Space Couch. Once Ian gets that show going, we gotta do that. Eric recommends the Sonys. That'll be great. This has just been a blast. We are on a rogue flight path here. I'm gonna bring this flying couch back on into the station. Um, so yeah, we got. I mean, standing offer. We didn't get through half the things I prepared. So you're welcome back to Space Couch anytime. This is Brian for Space Couch, for Ian Stair and Stair, Pretty Hate Machine, Silverwalks, uh, all sorts of stuff, nonstop. Saying, call the spaceships to Davenport, prepare for Divanarchy, interface with the couch in space. Ian, this has been a great episode. Thanks so much for showing up, man.
thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute blast.
It
It's been
has.
an absolute blast off.
Ah, that's your out. Oh, yeah. Well done. Okay. I let our conversation for the 10 minutes. Music production tips and stuff like that. And all right, so yeah, I will catch you about the internet, sir.
Yeah, sounds good.
Uh,
Hopefully I didn't rattle off too much like a babbling brook.
oh, are you kidding me? The this people were loving it. A really great response today.
Cool.
All right, later, man.
All right, brother. Thank you so much,
Thank
man.
you.
I'll see you soon.
All right, bye.
Bye bye.